Hello and welcome to this week's vlog. So this week I'm going to be going to the Pyrenees because we're going to be making some preview content for the Tour de France because the stages are going to be happening there. And as soon as we were going, I thought, well, this would be a great opportunity to make a guide to the region and show you how you might want to get there if you want to cycle there yourself and the things that you can do once you're there. So let's go.
We're just riding up the Col d'Aspin now, which is one of the most famous climbs in the Pyrenees, regularly features in the Tour de France.
So we got here earlier, first day, but
yeah, so we got here a few hours ago, flew into Toulouse. It's about an hour and a half drive or so to get to where we're staying. It's on the edge of the Pyrenees. So in a day, you can get up, fly to France, to Toulouse, and be riding in the Pyrenees by the afternoon, which is pretty awesome. Like, most people wouldn't think it was that accessible, but how cool is this? Right, gotta press on now. Nearly at the top.
I think something a lot of people want to know is how does it compare riding in the Pyrenees to riding in other popular areas such as the Alps and also Majorca. So the first thing to point out is it's a lot quieter in the Pyrenees than the Alps and miles quieter than Majorca. Now, there's a region actually in the Pyrenees that's between Toulouse and Andorra called Ariège, and it's about half the size of Yorkshire, but it has only 3% of the population. So that kind of really puts it in perspective as to how amazingly quiet it is here. But that said, there still are plenty of towns and places where you can get food and eat and refuel and that sort of thing. So the next thing, the difference really is the climbs. Now, the Pyrenean climbs generally are steeper than the ones found in the Alps and in Majorca, and there's just so much more variety than what you'd get in Majorca. I mean, Majorca's got a few really good climbs, but you know, you've basically got sort of 3 or 4 noteworthy ones, and then you've kind of, in the Pyrenees, it's like, well, take your pick. There's over 500, there's about 500 cols that are over 1,000 meters here. So that's just the ones over 1,000 meters. There's loads of other ones as well that are shorter than that. You know, it is a climber's paradise. But that said, the cycling is a little bit more challenging. So, you know, if you're a beginner looking for your first sort of cycling trip abroad, then perhaps the Pyrenees might not be the best place to go, and somewhere like Majorca might be a better option. But if you're a seasoned cyclist, then the Pyrenees is great. So the other thing to consider is gradient, and that can make it a bit trickier as well. So in the Pyrenees, you often get inconsistent gradients that break the rhythm of a climb. Steeper gradients of sort of around 12%, 14% are common on a lot of the big climbs, and this means that they can be quite a bit more challenging than climbs in the Alps. Consequently, that has an effect on gearing choice, and I would say that, you know, a lot of people will be better placed picking a 30 cassette or a 32 cassette if they come to the Pyrenees. I've come here before with a standard chain set on and an 1128, and I was fine the first day, but then the rest of the week I was just grinding away like Eddie Merckx at like 45 RPM for the rest of the week, and yeah, it wasn't pleasant, but I did get thighs of steel. Yeah, I think if you want to be able to spin, then get a bigger cassette. Also, right, in the Pyrenees, you get bears and wolves. So, you know, watch out for them. Maybe pack some bear mace just to fend them off. But, you know, always save a bit in the tank when you're riding up a climb, just in case a bear comes, so you can just outrun it. Good, that's a top tip. Remember that. So how to get to the Pyrenees? Well, you could drive all the way from England or whatever country you reside in if you want, but if you're flying, which I suspect most people will be, the best connected airport is Toulouse, and that's where we're flying from. Our flight was ridiculously cheap. It was about £24 each way, so you can really get a good bargain. And also Toulouse has lots of car hire options which are very affordable as well, especially if you book a long time in advance. And from Toulouse it's about an hour and a half drive to the big valleys and things like that, so yeah, it's very well connected. But there are other airport options that you might want to consider as well. So on the west side of France, you've got Biarritz as well, which is a good airport and means you can do a bit of surfing as well. And from there you can drive and access the Pyrenees. You're a bit closer to the Obisque on that side. And there's also Spanish airports as well on the Spanish side of the Pyrenees. So Bilbao and Girona in the east are pretty good options to fly to, and Girona's a great place to cycle as well. So there are the ones to consider. So where to stay and when? Well, we're travelling to the Pyrenees with the help of Bikecation, and they're really good at advising people on this because they do bespoke bike holidays and can tailor every aspect. So they have particular areas and particular hotels and B&Bs that they work with and will recommend because they're cycling friendly. But there are lots of good options in the area. So we're staying in the small town of Bart de Nest, which is just in the north of the Pyrenees, sort of to the east of it. And that's a great location to access many of the famous passes. But there are other small towns you can stay in as well, such as Bagnères de Luchon and Bijor. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. And from there, from Bijor, you can access the Col de Tourmalet and also the Obisque, which is quite a good location for those two cols, although I don't think most people will be doing both of them in one day. The towns of Hérault and Saint-Lary-Soulan are good options as well. Plenty of accommodation there and plenty of sort of food and things to eat and amenities. Generally speaking, if you come to the Pyrenees, you either want to stay in a place that has access to vehicular transport, such as Le Closier, they can drive you to places throughout the Pyrenees where you want, or you want to have a hire car yourself or bring your own car, or just have access to some kind of car transport, because a lot of the famous climbs can be quite far apart from each other. So the Obisque, for example, is an amazing climb that I'd recommend everyone does. It's quite far away from here, and it's quite far away from the Tourmalet, so there's not really an optimal place for you to stay where you could be riding both from your door. You're going to need some transport to get to the two, so I'd factor that in if you're going to come here.
If you come to the Pyrenees, you don't have to cycle just in the Pyrenees. Right now we're exploring a new area that I've not been to before, called the Pyrenees, and it's absolutely beautiful. There aren't big mountains like the Pyrenees, but there's still significant climbs, you know, plenty of Cat 3, Cat 2 climbs, and it's beautiful country, very sparsely populated, and there's lots of rolling terrain and very lush and very green. It's one of those areas that's kind of a well-kept secret and is not that well known amongst cyclists at all, but it really is an awesome playground to come and check out. I want to come back here. So where we're staying in Bart de Nest, the owners of Le Closier, where we're staying in, Reggie and Sue, told us about this area and showed us it. So yeah, it's a great place to come and check out as well. Added bonus if you want a day out of the high mountains.
Cheers, mate.
Sorry? Pre-ride caffeine, essential.
In terms of time of the year, then passes start to open around May and start to close around October. Now, because they are high mountains, you can get quite a lot of snow. So it's advisable that if you're going to travel to the Pyrenees, it's best to do so within this period. Around August, that can be the hottest month, and it can get pretty hot in the Pyrenees. so that's worth factoring in. But if you go in the end of July or August, you can potentially combine your trip with a Tour de France stage or a Vuelta stage, which would be pretty cool. We're just in the centre of Bagnères de Luchon right now in the Pyrenees, and this is actually going to be the start of stage 17 in the Tour this year. And so one of the things we're doing while we're out here is doing a preview of that stage, which is a really special stage in the Tour because it's only 65 kilometres long and it contains 3 massive climbs and 3,200 metres of climbing. So it's set to be, I think, one of the most exciting stages we've ever seen in the Tour de France in recent memory. This fountain behind me is the roundabout that marks the start of the Col de Peyresourde climb up there. Bradley Wiggins famously went well up there in 2012 when he won, and you know, Chris Froome has descended it like a beast as well. So if you love your iconic climbs from, you know, the Tour de France or cycling history, then the Pyrenees really is an absolute must destination. This is the sign at the top of the Col de Peyresourde, which is, you know, one of the most famous climbs in the area, and you may notice that it's covered in bullet holes. So I guess that means we're in bandit country around here. Just keep on my toes. So what's the food like in the Pyrenees? Well, there are plenty of food options, and the small towns often have the small mountain Carrefour supermarkets, and there's also a lot of bakeries and pâtissiers and delicatessens as well. But cuisine is typically alpine, so there's a strong bias towards cured meats and cheeses. Now, that said, if you are vegetarian or vegan, you should be able to find things to eat, but you may struggle when eating out in this region. But that's just one thing to sort of consider. Now, there are plenty of quality bakeries though, so if you like your pastries, yeah, it's a good place. If you stop at the top of the Peyresourde, there's also a creperie. So I'm gonna have a massive crepe. Just look at this behind me as I come round this hairpin. Look at that! Oh, it's amazing. That is why we ride bikes. This is one of my favourite views in the Pyrenees, and it's just on the Col d'Azay, which is not one of the most famous climbs, but it has been used in the Tour a lot. But it's often a sort of transitional climb in between the Peyresourde, which is over there, and the Col d'Aspin, which is over there. It's absolutely spectacular, like these mountains here and this ridge, that spiky ridge that comes down with the trees. And I think one of the things that defines the French Pyrenees, which is where we are now, is that it's a lot greener and lusher than the Spanish side, which is a bit more barren and has less rain. And this side being greener, the reason for that is that it rains a lot more. So I've been here in August, which is incredibly hot, but then often you get a little bit of rain nearly every day, and you get a lot of rain in this part of the world, so it makes it beautiful. But just be prepared, always take a rain cape with you if you're cycling in this part of the world, because the weather is incredibly changeable, and it can be changeable from valley to valley. We've got a beautiful day today though, so I'm going to make the most of it. So, competition time. Thanks for all your entries about small claims to fame. There's some really funny ones. I actually have a Pyrenees related small claim to fame, which was not this time, but the time before that when I went to the Pyrenees. I flew to Biarritz, and as I was pulling out of the car park at Biarritz Airport, I very nearly ran over Damon Hill. So there you go. But yeah, I missed him. But I think the winner of the competition and the Rule 28 socks, I'm going to give it to Bryce, sorry. Yeah, Bryce, no 5. Who wrote, it's really funny, he goes, "I nearly hit a man who looked a bit like Morgan Freeman as he stepped out of a Greggs in town once. He gesticulated at me briefly with a sausage roll." Maybe it was Morgan Freeman. It might have been the real maybe I've heard Morgan Freeman likes Greggs as much as the next man. So yeah, just get in contact and we'll send off your Rule 28 socks. Now, unfortunately, there's no competition this week as I've been a bit busy flying around and going to various things, including the launch of a new and exciting BMC bike. But rest assured, there will be a competition on the next vlog. So stay tuned for that, and it'll be out on the new slot on next Tuesday. So yeah, see you later. That in the background is thunder.